Dear fellow truth seekers, last week I have ended the myth-telling from the European continent. Now I'm going to share with you some myths from the American continent that are somewhat similar with the Abrahamic religious stories, although with a twist, and therefore important for our religious comparison study. Mesoamerica is a region and cultural area in the Americas, extending approximately from central Mexico to Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua, within which a number of pre-Columbian societies flourished before the Spanish colonization in the Americas beginning in the 15th century CE. Pre-Columbia is a term referring to the time preceding Christopher Columbus's voyages in 1492 CE. There were many cultures which flourished in this region of the world during the pre-Columbian era. However, in this video I will only share some from three of the major civilizations in Mesoamerica, i.e., the Maya, Inca, and Aztec. According to conventional historians, the first Maya cities were developed at circa 750 BCE until 900 CE. The Inca began settling in the Andes mountain of central Peru at 13 CE until 16th century CE. And the Aztec of central Mexico dominated large parts of Mesoamerica at the 14th until 16th century CE. The Inca and Aztec civilizations ended with the Spanish colonization beginning at the end of the 15th century CE. Mayan creation myth. The Mayan legend of creation began with the three gods Tepu, Gucumatz, and Huracan. In the beginning there was nothing, only the boundlessness of the sky and the quietude of the waters. Then Huracan, heart of the sky, the god of storm, the origin of the English word hurricane, spoke to Tepu and Gucumatz. Let this and this be done, came the word to Tepu and Gucumatz. Let the waters retire so that the earth may exist. Let the earth harden its surface so that it be sown with seed. Let there be human beings endowed with intelligence so that from them we may receive glory and honor. Thus the earth was formed with its mountains, plains, and valleys. The rivers ran in their proper courses, and seeds were implanted in the earth. Animals were created first. However, with all of their howling and squawking, they did not worship their creators and were then banished forever to the forest. The first men that were created were the men of mud, but they just crumbled and dissolved away. Then the gods carved men from wood. These men became numerous upon the earth. But they did not raise their heads to the gods. They had no thought, no memory, no hearts, and no blood. And the gods resolved to destroy the race of the men of wood. So they caused a heavy and a sticky rain. It fell night and day, darkening and flooding the earth. Many of the men of wood were drowned by that rain, but some could climb into the trees. Those who managed to save themselves became the little monkeys who inhabit our forests today. So the Mayans believed that the opposite of Darwin's theory of evolution took place. Again the gods thought upon the creation of men. Once more they took counsel with each other. They sent the crow and the coyote for a substance that grew at the place of the division of the waters. The crow and the coyote brought back these substances: a white and yellow maize, a tapir, and a serpent. Then the gods ground the maize, combining with the blood of the tapir and the serpent. This was how the men of maize were created. The men of maize stood upright. They saw, understood, moved, had sense and feeling. 4 were made by the gods, and these were the fathers of the Mayan. Then, when these 4 first men slumbered, the gods created 4 wives from their ribs or sides, like biblical Eve was created from Adam's rib. Inca creation myth. There are several creation myths in the Inca tradition. In one version, the great creator god was called Viracocha, also known as Kontiki Viracocha or Apukun Tiksi Virakutra. He was the most important deity in the Inca pantheon and was intimately associated with the sea. He was worshipped as the sun and storm god. He is represented wearing the sun as a crown, thunderbolts in his hands, and the tears from his eyes are the rain. The word Viracocha literally means sea foam. Viracocha rose from Lake Titicaca, or according to other versions from the cave Pacaritambo, during the time of darkness to bring forth light. He made the sun, moon, and the stars. Like the Greek myth, Viracocha made mankind by breathing into stones. But his first creations were brainless giants. They displeased him, so like the Norse mythology, the Inca god destroyed the giants with a great flood and made new better ones from smaller stones. Viracocha eventually disappeared across the Pacific Ocean by walking on the water like Jesus, and never returned. And like Buddha, he wandered the earth disguised as a beggar, teaching his new creations the basics of civilization, as well as working at numerous miracles. He wept when he saw the plight of the creatures he had created. It was thought that Viracocha would reappear in times of trouble. In another legend, Viracocha had 2 sons, Imamana Viracocha and Tocapo Viracocha. After the great flood and the creation, Viracocha sent his sons to visit the tribes to the northeast and northwest to determine if they still obeyed his commandments. During their journey, Imamana and Tocapo named all the trees, flowers, fruits, and herbs. They also taught the tribes which of them were edible or had medicinal properties and which were poisonous. Eventually, Tocapo and Imamana arrived at Cusco in modern-day Peru and the Pacific Sea coast, where they walked across the water until they disappeared. In another legend, Viracocha had a son called Inti, who was also a sun god. Inti had a son called Manco Capac. After Viracocha destroyed the people around Lake Titicaca with a great flood, he saved Manco Capac, his grandson, and Mama Oclo, the mother fertility. Manco Capac himself was worshipped as a fire and sun god. The Titicaca Virgin. In the village of Copacabana, on the shores of Lake Titicaca, this is home to the Indian Virgin known by natives as La Mamita del Lagoto, Virgin of Copacabana, and the patroness of Bolivia. The Virgin is a representation of the Black Madonna, well known for her miracles, predating Christianity. Source: Andean Legends of the Inner Earth by Kathy Dorr. This Virgin of Copacabana clearly resembles the biblical Maria, but it is noteworthy to note that when Christianity came to Mesoamerica with the coming of the Spanish conquerors, this legend already existed. Aztec creation myth. The Aztecs believed that the god creator of mankind was a feathered serpent god or a plumed serpent, a flying reptile much like a dragon called Quetzalcoatl. Like the biblical Lucifer, he was also associated with the morning star, i.e. Venus. Sometimes he was depicted as a harpy eagle wearing shell ear flares, wind jewel breastplate, and what looks like 3-petaled flowers on his crown. The crucified Quetzalcoatl. Here is another story which is very similar to Jesus' story. I quote the following text directly from The World's 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves, page 374. The incarnate god Quetzalcoatl was born about 300 BCE of a spotless virgin by the name Chimalman, and led a life of deepest humility and piety, retired to a wilderness, fasted 40 days, was worshipped as a god, and was finally crucified between two thieves, after which he was buried and descended into hell, but rose again the third day. Quetzalcoatl is represented in the painting of Codex Borgianus as nailed to the cross. See Mexico Antiquity, Volume 6, page 166. Aztec Flood Myth. In Aztec mythology, like the biblical Noah, Coxcox was the only male survivor of a worldwide flood. The Aztecs believed that only Coxcox and his wife, Xochitl, survived the flood. They took refuge in the hollow trunk of a cypress which floated on top of the water and finally banked on a mountain in Culhuacan. Coxcox and his wife had many children, but all of them were dumb. The Great Spirit took pity on them and sent a dove which attempted to teach the children how to speak. 15 of them succeeded, and from these the Aztecs believed the Toltecs and Aztecs were descended. Why are there so many similar religious stories and mythologies around the world? Are they really merely copying from one another? If yes, then how and when did they do that, while they are all so far apart? I will share my own analysis, which I believe is quite different than any other theories that you might have heard before. But I will do that after I am finished sharing more stories from other regions that are also similar to one another. Then I will compare them all with scientific data and/or archaeological findings to make sense out of them. Next week, I will share with you some more myths from the ancient continent. Thank you for watching and hope to see you next week.